Messieurs, bienvenue. I'll ask you to please take your seats. We're going to get started with our proceedings. So welcome back. Last night we had a great members reception and heard all about the CAF's latest report, Support Apprentice Success. And we welcome you to speak to CAF members and to go to the booth if you want to learn more about that report. A few little housekeeping reminders. You remember, if an emergency, you dial 777 or 911 from any house phone. Please mute your cell phone over the course of our plenary. And many of you have told us that you had tough choices making selections between the concurrent sessions and therefore are very interested in getting the notes, the presentations. So we're going to post those on the website as we get permission from the moderators of each of those sessions. So today I wanted to let you know that we have a special event happening at the same time next door. 100 youth from Ottawa are chatting with journey persons from across Canada next door and learning all about a career in the trades. This is a pilot session that we're trying this year, hoping to carry over into future conferences. And just wanted to say it wouldn't have been possible without the sponsorship from Algonquin College, so thank you very much to Algonquin College. Also, just wanted to point out, absolutely. Wanted to point out that there are educators from both the Ottawa Catholic School Board and the Ottawa Carleton District School Board with us today as special guests, so please welcome them as well. Welcome. A reminder to those of you that want to go on the La Cité Collégiale tour, you should be downstairs at 10:20. Okay, so please note that if you are interested in the tour of La Cité Collégiale, you must be downstairs in the lobby at 10:20, and volunteers will help you find your way there. So before we go to the panel, we have a raffle draw, so I'm going to invite Sarah to make that draw.
We wanted to thank everybody who came out to the reception last night. I think it was a good opportunity to not have presentations and just to get a chance to connect and unwind a little bit before dinner. And for those of you who were there and bought a raffle ticket, we were raffling off free registration for the 2016 conference. If you have your tickets, we'll get our chair, Ray Massey, to make that draw now. If you don't have your tickets, I believe all of the tickets have names written on them. However, the names were written by our manager of finance, and he writes much like a doctor. So we will figure it out, but give us a little bit of time, and we will definitely be back in touch with the person who wins the draw. Ray.
Oh my goodness, this is my name. So is that Erwin Martin? Is that what that is?
I have no idea. Read the number first.
How about the number? Anybody got their numbers? You got them out? 531462. 531462.
Okay, we'll figure out what it says on the back. I really should have made Min come back up here and read that for us because I knew we were going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a mystery. Thank you all very much for coming.
Somebody
will come for free.
All right, we'll figure out who the mystery winner is later on. Okay, let's go to our panel now. The title of the panel is quite descriptive of what it's all about, called Selling the Trades in an Economy Focused on Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. Promises to be very interesting. We'd like to thank Polytechnics Canada for helping us organize this panel. And I'd like to invite our panelists and our moderator. Malcolm Haynes will be moderator for this panel, Dean of the School of Trades at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. So please come on up. Welcome, and over to you, Mr. Haynes.
First line. I think any particular order is required.
More wired.
More They said they were going to turn it on, so we're just happy they did. So first off, welcome everybody this morning to breakfast and the last day of the CAF conference here. It's been a great time, and it's been a really interesting time for all of us. The topic we would like to talk about this morning, of course, is selling the trades in the economy focused on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Thank you to Polytechnics Canada for organizing this for us. Just briefly, Polytechnics Canada is a national alliance of Canada's 11 leading research-intensive, publicly funded colleges and institutes of technology. Established in 2003 and based in Ottawa, Polytechnics Canada is the voice of polytechnics with a common focus on advanced technical and technological education. Ensuring graduates find employment as highly qualified skilled workers in the industry sector of their choice is of paramount motivation, as well as providing access to experiential learning opportunities such as co-ops, internships, and work placements. A polytechnic education combines the practical approach of a college education and the depth of study usually associated with a university program. Graduates obtain degree-level programming, certificate, diploma, apprenticeship, and postgraduate credentials, and bring a high level of practical experience to the workforce. The policy areas that Polytechnics Canada has targeted for advocacy at a national level are applied research, commercialization and innovation, skills including apprenticeship and skilled trades, recognition of bachelor's degrees from their members. So specifically this morning, our topic really revolves around current post-secondary policy issues and includes a sharpening focus on the need to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics pathways for youth. How can we leverage this current opportunity to shift the dialogue with politicians, educators, youth, and parents to show that the skilled trades are equally fundamental to the practical application of STEM disciplines? So the panel we have today is made up of members of Polytechnics Canada institutions, and I'd just kind of like to maybe start at the end and work back towards this way, and we'll introduce ourselves and give you a brief background on what our institute is and what we do.
Okay. I'm Stephen Salloway. I'm an Associate Dean in the School of Construction and the Environment at BCIT in British Columbia. We put through about 5,000 apprentices a year, and we put about 5,000 foundation students and technical study students. That's pre-apprenticeship. Total number of students, about 17,000 full-time students and about 29,000 part-time students.
Good morning, my name is Chris Hahn. I'm Chair of Construction Trades and Building Systems at Algonquin College, and I also hold the title of Head of Apprenticeship at Algonquin. So we train about 2,500 apprentices across all the sectors, and we have quite a number of certificate and diploma programs that are articulated to apprenticeship. Many of the graduates of those programs will go on to an apprenticeship. And we do participate in the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program, pre-apprenticeship programs as well. And our institution has close to 20,000 full-time students.
Good morning. My name is Neil Cook, and I'm the Chair of Transportation Heavy Apprenticeship Trades at Red River College in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We are quite similar to some of my counterparts where we're delivering certificate, diploma, degree granting facilities is what we are. We involve ourselves in a lot of applied research activities specializing in motive power. And we currently are up to, according to our Apprenticeship Manitoba people that are with us, we're at about 8,000 apprentices per year. 11 to 14,000 daytime students in our facility and about 34,000 with our continuing and distance education programming.
Once again, my name is Malcolm Haynes. I'm the Dean of Trades at Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. The school, the trades in total at NAIT, we recognize 49 distinct trades in the Alberta system, and 32 of them are housed at NAIT. Our yearly apprenticeship numbers vary, but in the coming year we're scheduled to do about 15,000 apprentices amongst all of the different trades that we do. We really have 4 pillars to our institution, and trades is one of those pillars. We also deliver programming in business, health, and the science and technologies and engineering programs as well. Again, heavy heavy focus on applied research and innovation is being brought into the Institute as well. So welcome everybody. Just like to invite anybody at any time to step up to one of the microphones. That one I might be a little bit difficult to see because I have a light in my eye, but if I see anybody come up to the mics, please feel free to ask any questions at any time. But for now, I'm just going to throw a couple of questions out to our panel members, and I guess we're going to start with Chris. We had a vote, and Chris says that he's going to get the first one.
Well, and the only reason for that is he's the only non-journey person on stage today, so.
That's right. So they can pick on me.
He invited that, So Chris, in your view, how are STEM skills fundamental to the skilled trades, and can you maybe highlight 2 or 3 where they're particularly relevant in your view?
So what I did to make sure that I represent the team that I get to work with, I actually posed this question to all of our teachers who teach at Algonquin. And it's, even though I can speak to the issue, I was educated quite clearly with all of the feedback that I got. So we all know that math and science in particular, we're preaching to the converted, it's important in skilled trades. But just some examples that I got with respect to plumbing, for example, you have to know a little bit about biology. So if you think about sewage disposal, septic tank systems, knowledge about the interaction of aerobic, anaerobic bacteria. Potable water, you want to make sure that you've got something safe to drink, so there's an element of chemistry there. How do you treat it? How do you remove minerals? pH control. Physics, the use of Boyle's law, Bernoulli's principle, for example, that latter one used in jet pump applications. Carpenters, when you think about, we have a program that articulates very nicely to the apprenticeship program. There's a lot of math. Angles, ratios, proportions, use of sine and cosine to solve for missing angles, statistical variations. When you think about the estimating that you have to do, there's a lot of math and science in that. When I asked our refrigeration air conditioning team, they said something, well, just the basic stuff, Chris, like just the sort of the bare bones basic stuff, decimals, fractions, formula substitution, imperial, periodic table, atomic, molecular structure, material stresses. I said, okay, well, okay, that's the basic, just, slow down. And one of the faculty had a great line. He said, a competent person, a competent worker will get the job done and follow instructions, but a competent tradesperson is one that can deduce a problem and recommend and then implement a solution. So it's that problem-solving aspect that the math and science fundamentals can really help. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that.
Yeah, we have to teach people to a level where they can, if we understand Bloom's taxonomy, they have to be able to analyze things they've already learned and take it apart into its pieces and apply it to new things they've never seen before. The technology is changing so quickly. Things that are happening in the industrial sector or into the residential sector within a few years because the cost goes down. We got PID controllers, which involve calculus. They don't have to study calculus, but if they understand the concept of limits, what the rate of change is, and perhaps the area under a curve, it helps them understand how to use those controllers and troubleshoot those controllers. So it's all about trying to give them the skills where they can take something they already know and apply it to something new because technology is changing so quickly.
Those fundamentals are key to being a successful journey person. We don't need a lot or a large magnitude of parts changes within the world coming from the motive power industry. We don't need people just to follow blindly the lead of that journey person working beside them. We talked in some of our workshops yesterday about metacognition and what it means and thinking about thinking. And that's something that we always ask our students is, even when you know the answer, ask yourself why you know the answer. And if you can think back into the STEM process, you understand that if you have that fundamental understanding, you can deduce that problem. We need journey persons out there that are going to be thinkers, not just doers, but thinkers. And if you don't equip those individuals with those fundamental skills, you're not going to be able to develop those diagnostic abilities in your future career path and be able to ascend to different levels or different career choices as you move through. It's part of the total package, and it has to start at a very early age, and we have to try to engage our youth before they make a conscious decision on their career and let them know that there are important aspects of STEM. They're going to follow through their career path regardless of what path that happens to be.
And one of the things we discussed yesterday before this panel was the importance of reinforcing not only the STEM skills that they're learning in school, but the application to the applied problems that they're going to face, because I mean, all of us have been in a situation where we've learned some sort of a mathematics or physics problem that has absolutely no apparent application to the real world. And when you start linking those together into things that they know they're going to have to face on a daily basis, they really internalize those processes, and they learn to apply them in a variety of different ways. So it's making it real. It's putting something concrete in front of them and showing them the value of those skills. So
There was, somebody mentioned yesterday the book Shop Class is Soul Craft, and there's a line in that book that I like where just what you're talking about, the deducing as well. Creativity is what happens when the rules run out, and in a lot of the trades you are faced with things for the very first time, and it can be a lonely experience, but if you have the math and the science and the fundamentals behind you, it can help you get through figuring out those things. So.
Just like maybe to throw this one out to the panel here. When you think about in-class training offered by your institution, are there some trades where students are surprised to find so much emphasis on math, science, engineering, and technology? And does this affect the delivery of the technical training?
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of students coming into our programming, and speaking from the motor power and the heavy apprenticeship trades perspective, all of our Boilermakers in the crowd, our iron workers, our crane operators, our automotive techs, can probably attest to the fact that so many of our students come in and they don't assume correctly that math, science, technology, engineering are all going to be part of what their training really is all about. A lot of them get to see a construction site and they don't realize how much is behind the scenes and how much work really goes on with those journey persons in the field day in and day out. Posing simple questions to them and realizing and introducing the math, the science, the engineering of a certain product that you're working on, I always find very interesting. Every student comes into an engine overhaul class and talks about, well, can we enlarge that cylinder? What are we going to do? When you start to talk about the science, the technology, and the math behind it, and introduce the fact to them that if I have a compression ratio of such and such a ratio, and I enlarge that cylinder by 30 thousandths of an inch, what am I doing to that engine? It creates an in-depth conversation that involves trigonometry, straight geometry, there's physics involved, and it goes on and on and on. And they start to put the pieces together, and I think that's where we start to gain the successful advantage by teaching these students to think differently about how their job is actually being performed and what entails that job being a successful job at the end of the day.
And I know in speaking with some of our faculty, the electrician professor said that some of the basic students are actually surprised with the amount of math. And I thought, it's interesting when you pursue the electrical trade, you would just assume that someone would know that there's math and science. Think of cooking, hairstyling, chemistry, knowledge of anatomy, an element of nutrition as well, and how that affects the hair. And for cooking, just the teacher was making a point just about the mathematical concepts to make sure that you understand about food costs. If you're very good with that, you've got a career. If you're not good with that and the mathematical concepts behind that you may be fired. So just understanding those basics. And how do we deal with that at the college? Our teachers, the professors are very good. They're excellent at what they do, but they do have to deal with students coming in who they may have a grade 12 diploma, but they may not have a grade 11 or 12 math or science credit. So how do we overcome that? Through assessments, through tutoring, through extra time, it's just work, and I imagine that all the institutions are the same. I don't know if you want to.
The technology side of it, I've been quite involved in program development, and years ago sitting down with some electrical contractors. I taught for 23 years in electrical trades. Talking to them, and they said, we don't want to pay somebody $40 an hour to have them working on a computer. And that was 10 years ago. Now just about every control that we work on is controlled by a computer and programmed by a computer. you have to be able to look forward and see how the technology is changing and how we're going to adapt to all the technology. The number of PAC members that come to me and say that on the job they've got tablets, and they're using their tablets to transfer information back and forth from the office to the job site. Working drawings can be done in a short time, transferred out to the job site. It's a total change in the attitude of the employers even to say that now we want these things on the job. We're actually going to use these tablets and things on the job, where years ago it was like, you're not going to pay somebody to spend their time at the computer.
And one of the nice things I think that that we do at all the colleges is it's the applied aspect to teaching math and science. So I know I see that. We have a geometry class in carpentry where they're actually building something. So you're learning math at the same time as you're building something. It's that sort of direct connection between whatever the math or scientific engineering concept, technology concept, to what you're actually doing in a lab class, or you're discussing it in the theory class. And it's just that relevance, that connection. It makes sense. So at least that's the feedback that we get from students. And some of the students say, geez, I wish I had taken this more seriously in high school. We get that a lot. And we wish they had too.
I think that's one of the largest disconnects that we have is trying to make the math, the science, the technology, and the engineering applicable at the secondary and earlier levels. I think if we could engage the learner, whether it's in middle years or earlier, as to how you relate that math concept or that science concept to something that they see in their daily life, I think would take us a long, long way in getting people to engage, accept, and try to excel in a multitude of different career paths, including the trades. Because right now, I don't think there's enough emphasis put on the applicability of what we do in math and science to make it real to the students. And that's one of the comments we get from a lot of the parents that are still engaged with their we'll call them children, I guess. I have a 25-year-old who's still a child. But to engage and say, you know what, I really can't understand how my son or daughter went from a 60 percentile math student to a 90 percentile math student. And the comment they usually get from their child is, I get it now because I can understand why I would use that. It's so applicable to them. I think you have a question. Oh.
I don't know if this is on? Alan Bruce, I just wanted to follow up on what you're talking about there. And is there anything being done by the colleges to work with the K-12 system to encourage that application-based learning that doesn't necessarily channel a kid from into a trade, or it would still allow any post-secondary experience, but I think it's really important. I know I have a 16-year-old son. I talk to a lot of his friends, and they just don't get the relevance of the math they're being taught, or even the reading skills they're being taught. They don't. I think one of the greatest dangers in the system is that every teenager I talk to will read 140 characters, and that's the end of their attention span. And to be able to analyze documents and to draw out the information they need out of documents is really important. So I don't think we're doing enough to work with the K-12 system to make them understand that that's a real need. So I just wondered for the panel if anyone is doing that.
I'd like to talk about that one. We have Skill Plan in the audience here. 20 years ago, Skill Plan started to bring teachers, counselors, so science teachers, math teachers, counselors through the schools. They took them, I'm sure they went to Alan's school at the time as well. They took a week at the end of June and went through and saw what painters did and saw what electricians did and carpenters and the various trades. I was teaching at the time, and the first year they came through, I spent some time showing them a lesson in three-phase theory, which is all about algebra and trigonometry. Not to try to teach them all about three-phase theory, but to show them how we use mathematics. And they were shocked with what we were doing with three-phase theory. The other thing that's not really included in STEM, but next year we went through and I took a code book, a Canadian Electrical Code, and tried to show them some of the rules and how we had to interpret the rules and the placement of the words like and or and notwithstanding, where the commas came in the sentence and how all that affected the understanding of the students. They couldn't believe the comprehension that the students would have to be able to have, or the reading skills they'd have to be able to have. We didn't continue with that, but I've heard that other schools have done that, and I really think it would be a good idea if we could engage in the K-12 system, right from the elementary schools all the way up, to start showing how we use science and math technology in trades training.
And just two quick examples. We have a math course in our Faculty of Technology and Trades that's shared by multiple programs, and we'll have students at the secondary level take that course. It's called dual credit in Ontario. They'll take that course and while they're still in high school. So they can get a credit while they're in high school as well as at the college, and they can get to see how that math then is taught at the college level while they're still in high school. And one other quick example, we had a number of guidance counselors from the high schools come in, and typically what we like to showcase is our labs and the technology, but this time we showcase the theory that we do. And we did electrical principles, was one of the classes that we did, put all the formulas up on the board and went through the straight theory, and there was a new appreciation about what we're doing at the college level, so that students who maybe aren't that good in math and science are not streamed to the trades just because they're good with their hands, this idea that, well, you don't need the other stuff. Now there's an appreciation, I think, that you need both. So for the gentleman, I don't know about you guys, but.
My name is Aldo Ciamprini. I'm with the Ministry of Education here in Ontario. And yesterday we did a presentation on the Specialist High Skills Major Program in Ontario. And one of the components about that program around the contextualized learning, so we've developed for each sector, 19 sectors, a bundle of credits that the students have to complete in order to get that SHSM seal on their diploma. But one of the pieces that initially was almost an unintended consequence, but is really paying off dividends, we've contracted schools as part of the funding for the program to develop what we call contextualized learning activities. So I'll give you a simple example. In the construction sector, when that school applies, they commit to developing contextualized learning activities in English and in mathematics, grade 11, grade 12, where that course is contextualized to the construction, formulas, et cetera, so that that student for the first time starts to see, this is why I need to understand trig, because I'm going to calculate the line length of that rafter, and they now start to see those connections. And implementation, I'll call it spotty, because we have some math teachers and English teachers that are all over it, embrace it, and others are still looking at it as additional work, but actually the CLA is based upon the Ontario curriculum. It's just a different way of delivering the message. And some of the schools that we have in the province who've really embraced it are now using CLAs for all of their students, regardless of regardless of whether or not they're in the SHSM program, because they're, lo and behold, kids are more motivated. They now start to see why they need to know this. And we find that that's, as I say, almost an unintended consequence, but in an area that we know can pay off huge dividends in making sure that kids understand the connection between English and science and math to that sector that they have a passion for.
Actually, that's good, because it's not just a contextualized thing, although that's what it is, but it's also a life skill. Like that empowers that person, I think, in their life as well, learning all of that stuff in terms of...
And some of the boards that have really embraced it, they've actually brought their science teachers and math teachers out to a home build program, where if it's a construction-focused program, and for the first time, those individuals, that math teacher, that English teacher, are starting to see, so that's how the kids can use what I've taught them. I just need to configure it slightly different so they can see how it applies to their particular area of passion.
That's good. That's good.
That's good, and that's important that we do that we talk about our work with these groups to put things into context. I mentioned skill plan earlier. In Aboriginal classes, we found that essential skills were a bit of a problem for our success rate. So we decided to do 8 to 10 weeks of essential skills prior to training for carpentry or for electrical or the various trades that we do. And we sit down with the subject, or the learning experts at Skill Plan, and talk to them about how to take the math and science and put it in context for what the students are about to learn. And it's been very, very effective.
I think that's one of the key areas that we're working. We're actually working backwards in a sense. We as tradespeople, as educators, understand what it's going to take to make a student successful within our program. We instituted in 2002 a new program that had our math and science instructional staff at Red River College all become, or all of the staff that we had at the time were all bona fide tradespersons. And every lesson that was planned had to mirror what they were doing in their specific core area subject. So if I was at that time, the engine instructor for diesel and gas engines, all of my instructional work would have to correspond with the math and sciences to exactly what that student was doing in the shop at that time. So they were doing trigonometry, they were doing geometry, they were doing Bernoulli's principle. Everything had to be applicable to what we were doing. We found that at the end of the first year that our overall core marks went up by about 0.5%. In year 2, they were just a little over 0.9%, and in year 3, they hit 1.4%. And we maxed out at the end of 5 years at just under 5% increase over their core mark by making the math, the sciences, and the communication applicable. And I think that's one thing that we have to highlight, and it was mentioned in one of the plenary sessions yesterday that we can talk about math and science, but that whole literacy component is also an important feature of a STEM project, is to understand, because we still have to deal with a lot of technical information to achieve that proficiency, the science, the math, the technology, and the mathematics. So.
Hi, I'm Shirley Mitchell from the East Coast. I'm with the automotive trade. I'm an HR professional, but I'm also a mother of 3 young children, and I sit on a parent school committee in St. John, and actually at Centennial School, and we came up with the idea, and well, actually I kind of pushed it because I've been saying to the educators in New Brunswick that having career day in grade 12 is way too late, and I'm big about essential skills, and I see it because I have grade 12 graduates that can't pass a grade 8 exam. I believe, based on what I heard yesterday, is true that if they don't get the basis by grade 3, they're going to be so far behind. And if we don't look at that problem going forward, and I know we're working with the generations, with the millennials, well, my kids are in the next generation, and they're not that far from the workforce either. The program that we did, and it was great because the K to 5s were just fascinated. It's connecting careers to essential skills. And we made it very simple. We had professionals. I had an automotive service tech in our classroom, and rather than having a big room where the kids all go around, they came to classrooms and they spent 20 to 30 minutes with that particular thing, or that trade, and we talked about all the different essential skills and how they used it in their job. We had to do it in a quick forum, but still it got the idea. The second year when we came back, the kids that were a year above, I remember you were here last year, you're the technician. And we actually tried to, because we were working in the anti-poverty initiative as well, so we were in one of the poverty neighborhoods, and I picked employers that were actually in and around those areas so that I could give hope to these kids to see that these employers are right in your neighborhood. You can actually do these jobs. So you got to inspire them at a very young age, and if we don't do that, we're always going to be playing catch up, and I'm just wondering what you think about that.
I think that's a feature that we have to key on, and sorry, the previous speaker asked a similar question about how we're engaging the K to 12, and I think that's going to be critical for us in the future. Right now, you're right, looking after a grade 12 student, choice is already made. We have within our department, one of our coordinators is a recruiter, and that's what he does on a year-round basis. We schedule meetings with schools. Initially, we looked at just the vocational schools. We have 7 major vocational regional high schools. Then we went out to the academic schools because they don't even have an option. And then we geared up and we went to the middle years. So we're hitting the grade 9 or 8, 6 to 8 students, and we're doing presentations for them. The other part that I think really has made it a little more successful and more attractive for people to come in and find out what we do is our program auditing system that we have right now. We get to do what we call our speed dating session with all of the counselors from throughout Manitoba once a year. And we move from table to table, various chairs and coordinators talk to them. We explain what we do and how we do it and what is necessary for a person to be successful when they enter college in one of our trade or diploma or technology programs. I think that was real enlightening, and unfortunately our counselors are usually the ones, like we've seen yesterday on the stats that we had up, 20% of them engage in promoting trades. So they're usually the easy target, unfortunately, and it's only because we're not informing them well enough. We have to get out there and inform them more. But what I find is that when we bring in students now through our auditing program, they arrange it with their school board, their school administrator. We bring them right into a class, and they'll audit a program for 2 to 3 days and be fully immersed with the students that we have at college. So they'll be with a pre-employment group and get to see exactly what they do. That stimulates a lot of conversation. We usually get invites to go back to the school to talk more about what we do and how we do it and why we're doing it. So we found that that's been very, very successful, but we're still not reaching the younger children. The closest thing we have right now is our early childhood care program at the college that come to our program every day and view what we're doing. So it's quite interesting to see a 3-year-old that can identify the difference between a Freightliner and a Kenworth and knows the difference between a wheel loader and a track loader, and all the little fingerprints on the glass. So it's always interesting for us to see those little kids every day. So.
Hi, my name is Maureen Brown. I'm one of the speakers. I'll be speaking in about an hour about why new immigrants are not embracing the trades to the extent that they are reflected in the demographic shifts and what stakeholders can do about it. And I just wanted to pick up on some comments that you made from a very personal perspective. I shared with my colleague, my son, I'm an immigrant here, but I've been here 40 years since I was a kid. And one of the things I'm going to be talking about is how even what you're doing and what you're saying, as amazing as it sounds, there's a loop that is running in the minds, in the back of the heads of many new immigrant parents like myself that somehow is interfering and will interfere with your messaging. And using my own example, to be honest, I remember in grade 10 when I was meeting with my son's geography teacher. And we're traditionally from back home, a very, let's say, academically inclined family. And my daughters have gone on to higher academia and all that good stuff. And I remember when my son said, he just, out of nowhere, he said, oh, by the way, someone was here talking this morning about the trades, I think I might be interested in doing blah, 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 blah. And I remember, I thought after this many years and being a diversity champion and professional, I didn't expect the strength of the visceral response I had to that. And it was like, no. But what is absolutely interesting is fast forward, 5, 6, 7 years. So my son went on to university like his siblings, decided he had a passion for engineering. And something you said a while ago, you were talking about how, it's one thing to want to do engineering and so on, but when you're sitting in a class and you're doing linear algebra, it's X's and Y's and B's and C's, and he just ground to a halt. He really couldn't make that connection with wanting to be an engineer. A big, long story later, we pulled him back to think about things over the past year. I stumbled into a program at the college level. I've been contracted to do some work with Canadian Apprenticeship Forum, and I must say, CAF, I think you're going to be the lifesaver of my family, because through that work, I realized, how, whether or not my son goes on to be an engineer, and I think he will, what he needed was another pathway. He needed to know he doesn't just have to go in through the route of, studying, at the university. But what was exciting for me as well was to see let's say fast forward 5 years, 8 years, he's now an engineer. He knows what it is to be a technician. He knows what it is to be a technologist. He would have worked on job sites. And his engineering degree, who knows if, when, or how that will factor in. So sorry for the, I just want to encourage, whether it's CAF or your stakeholders, do what you're doing, but remember, for our communities, a lot of times going into the trades can feel like a death knell of sorts. It isn't, and this is why part of my personal work moving forward is going to be, if not a champion, to help to clarify that. But that's definitely something that you want to take a look at. Who is not getting this memo, and what can you do to begin that re-education among, immigrant and newcomer groups? Thanks.
Yeah. Just to tie what you were saying with the previous questioner, and I think what we heard yesterday from Mark Breslin just about communication, to tie all that together, science and math, it can be fun. It really can, and the earlier you start that messaging, the better, because with math and science, it creates options, and skilled trades are an option, so is university, so is the world of work. There's many options, and just in preparing for this panel today, I was doing a little bit of reading, and some research is showing that interest in science and math declines as kids get older, for whatever reason, and a select group of provinces, they were saying that 50% of graduates with from secondary school don't graduate with a grade 11 or 12 math or science credit. So the previous question was the earlier the better is one message. And trades are fun. We have the tools. We have the technology. I mean, it's interesting stuff. Somebody once said to me that the pen, for somebody my age, that was my technology for learning. But when you think about now, like with a Surface or an iPad, they look at that like a pen. And so if youth are looking for interesting and fun things to do, it's the tools, it's the technology. That can what really turn somebody on. So just to make that point.
Hi, I'm Gary Herman, and I'm the interim CEO for the Industry Training Authority in BC. Just to add to what you were saying about your son in engineering, in my experience, I'm a tool and die maker by trade with an MBA. And in my experience, the best engineers that I've ever seen were the ones who went through either the trades or through co-op programs. I mean, Waterloo is a classic example of an early adopter of the co-op program. Many other schools followed, but they crank out the best engineers because they understand the practical side of engineering and not just the theoretical side. So there is no substitute for practical experience, and I'm sure that many people in the room would agree with that. The key question is, how do we get more of that practical experience and that hands-on feeling that can then supplement the theoretical knowledge that occurs?
I think that's one of the challenges, and I really like that point. I believe that you are right, and I find that we're probably more accepting of that theory from some of our immigrant students than we are internally from our domestic student population, and I'm not sure why that is. My first year as an instructor, one of my students that came from the Ukraine at the time wanted to become a heavy-duty technician. His end goal was to become an engineer, not that he felt that was any higher than being the technician, but he wanted to have that real-life experience because he believed that if he did not have a full fundamental understanding of how things worked, how things had to be repaired, to almost reverse engineer the process so he could become a better engineer, he needed that skill first, and that's what he did. And he ended up going to work for the Cummins Corporation and later became an engineer and went back to work for them as a design engineer. He did it the opposite way, and they found that method worked very, very well for him. So the career does not terminate, it just ascends from one form to another. And when I use the word ascend, I use that very loosely. In the center of my wall with the papers that I have acquired over the years is still my heavy-duty certification. That's where I started, and that's where I'll always be. It's no better, no worse than anything else on the wall. It was just part of the entire career path that I chose. But that is something that I find is very useful, and I find more engaging from the immigrant students that we get than some of our domestic. They grasp that concept.
And just to add or reiterate what I mentioned yesterday as well to the shocked parent who had an academia family, is the message to take home here is that these are not jobs in the trades, they're careers in the trades, okay? And where you start in your career and where you end in your career is entirely up to you. So it's not just a job, it's a career, as we see here and in many other people in the room.
Exactly. I come from a family where my parents didn't like me going into the trades, and they were very clear about that. And I did two trades. I'm an electrician and I'm a heavy-duty mechanic. I'd finished the two trades, I still was not good in their eyes. I did a bachelor's degree in education, still not enough. Okay. And it wasn't until I became an associate dean that my father actually acknowledged that I'd been successful in my career.
Did he take you out for dinner?
Yeah. It just, for me, it's actually part of the reason I'm up here, is I think I need to push trades out in there in the world. It's a great career. It is a career, as Gary says, and Gary's spoken about his career path. I'm often asked to speak about my career path and where I went, and I speak to parents all the time about the fact that the Red Seal is not the end. It's the beginning, and that there are so many opportunities for growth out there. At our institution, you can take your Red Seal and you can build on that into a bachelor's degree in construction management or an international construction management degree with the University of Bath that we do in cooperation with them. It really is important that people see this as just another path. My son is in engineering, one of the universities in British Columbia, is doing magnetism. It is so mathematical. He has no concept of how that actually relates to a physical component or doing something. So I try to work with them on that part, and it really is it's a great way to do a career. I mean, people need to understand. But you do need math, you do need science, and you do need those English comprehension skills. And I think we can engage young people at a very young age by making the science interesting, and I think we have to do that. We have to help the high school and the elementary school teachers understand how they can do applied take the theory and apply it in ways that will relate to the students. Let's figure out the gear ratio on a mountain bike with a teenager. They'd love that. You know, how do the brakes work? What actually is taking place when you squeeze the handle on the brakes of your bike? You know, how we're changing energy from a motion into actually heat. Very few of them understand that. Why do the brakes fade after a while when you're stopping in a hurry? You know, all of those kind of things could be made really, really clear to the students and to get them engaged.
I think that connection to reality is critical for the math, the science, the engineering, the technology. It's just so critical. Yeah. And again, dating myself, you know, I'm going to be 30 next month.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. Again. You know, I started on grade 1. We had a bag, and I always enjoyed that so much because it was full of little wooden blocks that were different lengths, and you were doing ratio, and you were doing fractions and proportioning, you were assembling, you were engineering. This is in grade 1. And I look back now, and I looked at my son, and we were talking about this yesterday. We had a great time getting together, meeting each other, with him coming home with a problem to solve. You know, my problem was putting everything together. My son comes home as a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old with a problem, and he asked me for help with the problem. And the problem was I have a horse and 2 goats and 3 hay bales, and I have a boat, and I have to get across the river. How am I going to get it across the river without the animals eating? You know? So being a tradesperson and being, you know, a concrete sequential thinker and, you know, problem solver, because in the motive power of trades, it's a service industry, time is money, we get the job done, we do it effectively, we do it right the first time when we move on. So I'm eating supper, I just get home from work, and I said, well, you throw the bales in the boat and tie the animals to the back of the boat, row across, and you're done. He comes back the next day and he says, you know, Dad, my teacher said you're wrong. So I'm having supper again. It's been a long day, a little overtime at work, and I looked at him and said, what do you mean I'm wrong? He says, well, he said, what I should have done is I should have put the bales in the boat and rowed it across and dropped them off, then rowed back and got the sheep and put them in the boat and rowed them across and unloaded them and loaded the bales, and then went back to the other side and unloaded the bales and put the horse in the boat and rowed back, drop him off, and then went back and got the bales and come back again. It just so happened we had parent-teacher at the end of that week. So here I am, sitting in one of those chairs with my knees just under my chin, looking at this grade 3 teacher, 4 teacher, and trying to get her to explain to me, how is this real? How is this, what are you teaching my son? You know, he's got to go out and function in reality later. Like, he's not going to be rowing back and forth against the, you know. So could we not start? I mean, I could have introduced physics into that and buoyancy. I could have done a lot of different things with this stupid exercise, but his problem-solving abilities are really scaring the hell out of me right now. Although I am quite proud. He is a Red Seal certified heavy-duty mechanic now, but so he did all right. But can we not introduce something different? I mean, we don't have total control over the education system, but to me, that's just a total waste of time, you know? Sorry.
That's good. That's good. Let's give him a round of applause. Thanks for doing that, man. That's perfect.
That's funny. As a parent of 3 young girls, I feel your pain because I'm being re-educated in math again right now as well because they're teaching a different method. But anyway, that's another story. I have a question about the engagement of small employers and medium-sized employers because, you know, I'm sure the colleges out this way as in East are very dominated by the bigger businesses. You know, and when I think of, you know, my particular trade, it's the dealerships and whatnot. How do we reach out to those smaller businesses to get apprenticeships? And I don't know if the college is part of that equation. I know it's a big collaborative thing, but I'm just wondering, you know, I sit on the Automotive Sector Council as well in Nova Scotia, and that's part of what we do is trying to get that word out to those smaller businesses. What part do you guys play in that, do you think? I'm just curious, because I'm a big believer in industry needs to, you know, be supported by the colleges, and I'm working really hard to get tire training in our colleges down on the East Coast because I'm training industry, believe it or not. Our company is training industry. So I'm just wondering, how do you guys help in getting out to those smaller businesses and getting them engaged in apprenticeship?
We have recently, well, we always had loosely formed sector councils or strategic sector councils with the industry, and it engages small and large employers. Coming from Manitoba, we don't have the the manufacturing or the technology base that we may have in Ontario or Alberta, what they're doing with some of the energy. So we are in a constant influx with smaller businesses. The larger employers are always going to be there, but we deal a lot with the associations. So we'll deal with the Manitoba Trucking Association. We'll deal with a lot of the labor bodies. And that's another route for us to go. We deal a lot with our skilled trades associations from the various labor bodies and work the opposite way to engage both sides of the fence, so to speak. Motorsports, Automotive Dealer Association, all big players that come together, but they bring in a wide multitude of players from small and large business, and that way we get a better cross-representation of what the needs are and what opportunities exist within the sectors.
We just recently had an industry breakfast with the automotive industry in Alberta. We brought about 120 both large and small players in actually to just get together and talk about some of their issues. And one of the issues, the first issue that was brought up when one of the speakers or one of the participants stood up says, you know, in the automotive industry, we're just having a heck of a time finding enough qualified journeymen to put into our shops. What are you as the college going to do to help us with that? And so, you know, we started talking a little bit about, you know, right now in that particular industry in Alberta, the way to get another journeyman is to go and poach him from another company instead of, you know, just bringing the apprentices on board. So it's even happening there to a large degree. And you know, how do you address a group of 120 people like that and say, the real issue here is that there are apprentices that are willing to start out in this trade, but you're not interested in them. You're more interested in the journey people that are coming in. And you know, it was an eye opener for some of them, and it was a message that they didn't want to hear, but it was a message that they needed to hear. And so we were able to start to address it that way, because we're more than willing to take them in and train them if they are sent to us.
I can add, one thing that has been effective with some of the sectors out there is joint training boards. Instead of indenturing or signing up an apprentice to an employer, put them to a joint training board. So let's collect them all together. A lot of the small and medium employers don't have jobs that are going more than a year or two into the future, and they're afraid to commit to something that's 4 years long. But if they can take someone and use that person for a year and then send them back to the board and they go to another employer and they get some experience in a slightly different aspect of the trade, it would be useful. So I think you would take some of the fear of that commitment away from the small employers, and they could actually use people when it's valuable to them to have an extra employee. It's been very successful with some of the unions. They've done a great job with it. When I did my electrical apprenticeship, worked for 5 different contractors. And each one of those contractors gave me some different experience that was very valuable to me in my future.
Steve, I have a question.
Michel Gramo from Sudbury Catholic. I'm a furniture maker and a pattern maker by trade who fell into education. Now, have you guys thought about, most teachers, well, all teachers are university trained. Going to the university and talking to them and telling them and showing them how to embed technology in the delivery of their mathematical or their science classes, because those teachers are academics in nature. So they understand formulas. They understand X over Y divided, bracket this, bracket that, but they can't apply it. They can't teach it in an applied way. We have made strides with contextualized learning activities, embedding it, making it relevant to a student's interest, destination, but we have a long ways to go. I was one of those students who struggled with mathematics in high school. I hated math. I was basically passing by the skin of my teeth because I was in the back of the classroom not causing a problem. I'm sure the teachers passed me on. It wasn't until I got to college level that I understood how important that math skill was to me. And I got it because I had to calculate revolutions per minute, PPMs. I had to see gear ratios. I had to see what I needed to do to accomplish a task. And it was close to my heart because it was in an area that I was passionate about. And if I wanted to succeed, no matter what, I had to make an effort to get it, to understand it. And I think that's what's missing from when the teachers are teaching it. They're teaching a concept, an academic concept, and not being relevant to the destination or to an application. And we need to start at the university level to get these teachers to use more of these contextualized approach.
Actually, it's a really good idea that you're talking about to like Bachelor of Education programs, or if there's a specialty in teaching math, to do that. I don't know if anybody's actually done that, but I think it's a good idea. We have had high school teachers come in. Just this past winter, we had a couple of high school teachers come in, and that's exactly what they were working with us on for their purposes at the secondary level, is for us to provide them the relevant examples that they could tie into their curriculum to teach high school math, whether it was, and I don't know the codes, whether you're going to university, college, or workplace. It was just to tie in the relevant examples. But your idea is a good one, like a really good one.
We have to get them while they're still in the faculties of ed.
Yeah, it's a good
before
idea.
they hit the classroom.
I guess with the education being controlled by each provincial jurisdiction, it will be different in other provinces. I think we're rather fortunate in Manitoba on a couple of fronts. We as college instructors have to take our certificate in adult ed, which means that we are trained separately. We still fall under the Western Dean's Agreement, so meaning that if I'm a journey person and I've completed my CAE, I can move on to an undergraduate degree if I wish. But in order to teach an adult student, I have to have a certificate in adult ed. In our high school system, for any high school that's running an accredited program in Manitoba, you have to be a holder of a diploma in vocational ed. And in order to have that, the prerequisite is you have to be a journey person. So right away, you're introducing that journey person into the high school system. So there's a little bit more of an opportunity for that interaction between the vocational teacher and the math teacher to try and integrate the curriculum within the confines of what we have in most provinces. I mean, we'd love to have total control, I'm sure all of us would, over what is going to be delivered in math and science, English in the high school system and possibly middle school or earlier. But we don't. So that's probably the closest thing we have to an option, but I think that is a benefit for us in our apprenticeship system, is that we can transition from a bona fide journey person at high school to a bona fide journey person and adult educator that's been taught to teach, although we're not supposed to call ourselves teachers, we're instructors because we don't have a degree, and then move on through the system. So I think that might be a bit of a benefit, but I don't disagree either. I mean, most of my professors that I had in university, I'm flying home because my grad for my master's, I didn't get to go on spring break either. I don't know why, my wife would let me do that. But my grad is on Thursday. Most of my professors are honest enough, working with a cohort of college instructors, because we were all as a cohort together, to be honest and say, it's interesting dealing with you because you all come with realistic experiential life skills. You think different, you act different. Your outcomes, the outcome is still the same, but the way you get there is totally different. And they found it a bit refreshing. The thing they said is it's difficult for us because most of us have never been out of the university system. They went from their undergraduate to a graduate to a doctorate, an associate professor, and then right into teaching. They've never been outside of the confines of the walls of the university. So it's very difficult for them to put those pieces in place. And I appreciated the honesty of those professors that they would say that.
I would love to see a carpenter, an auto service technician teaching a grade 10 math. I would love to see that.
All of the instructors, I used to look after math and science in the college, and my counterpart, he's over next door. He's a sheet metal worker, and he's now the electrical and math and science chair. All of the staff I transitioned over a 7-year period, and from the academic community, and as they retired through attrition, everybody was replaced with either a journey person or a technologist, and that's the only people that teach math and science at Red River College. So I think that helps us.
Thank you.
I actually did that. I taught grade 9 and 10 math in high school for 2 years, and I used a lot of practical applications in my teaching.
Carla Harder. I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I work for an organization called Women Unlimited, and we do interventions with women, mostly mature women, who are probably casualties of the educational system, who never really got turned on to science, technology, engineering, or math, and were really left behind in many ways. Then went on to do series of really low paid wage jobs, such as call center work, Tim Hortons, drive-through work, etc. And part of our program, the emphasis is on creating a sort of a learning environment for women where they have a chance to actually explore trades and technologies where they have the potential to make good wages and to support their families. And I'm really heartened to hear about some of the things that are going on in institutions, learning institutions around applied learning and contextual learning, because that's something that we've been doing for about 7 years inside of our program as like an early intervention before they go on to their training. And I just want to say that that has had an incredible impact, and the diverse women that we work with, I have seen switches thrown, doing isometric drawings, understanding spatial awareness, working on distributed weight problems through building and actually creating something in the classroom. And I'm really heartened. But I wanted to bring women into this equation because we're 47.3% of the population, and I think that it's that kind of approach that is going to make the difference in terms of women being turned on to math, sciences, technology, and that's going to make a difference. And it hasn't been happening. I think it's still not happening from what I'm hearing in the school systems in that K-12 to the extent that it could be. So I just wanted to make that statement and say that we know it works. We've seen it work.
Thank you very much. Our time is up now, so on that note, unless you've got any comments that you would like to add to that, I will end it there. So I'd just like to thank my colleagues here very much for coming up, and thank every one of you for joining us this morning and participating in the conversation.
Thanks for facilitating this.
Good job, Michael. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so just a few little announcements. We're going to break. Please note that the break is going to be a few minutes shorter because we're going to start the sessions from 10:50 to 11:50 because then we have the Minister Kenney's keynote at noon, all right? So then lunch will be served right after the Minister's keynote. So have a good break, enjoy the last set of concurrent sessions, and we'll see you back here at 11:50.